Donald Trump took office and immediately began doing very standard Republican things, like making prescription medication more expensive, insurance more expensive, shaving off benefits, going after Social Security, doing things like that are very standard Republican. My entire life, that's been the whole Republican jig. And, Donald Trump's supposed to be this outsider, this fighter for the little man, even though his entire life's history says otherwise, even though he's a billionaire, has always been very wealthy, has made a career of ripping people off. Somehow his base believes that he's all for them. But of course he isn't. So one of the good things that the Biden administration did was, like cap insulin at $35 a month and also lower prescription drug costs. But Donald Trump, as soon as he got in there, signed an executive order to make it more expensive because again, he's just a standard establishment Republican. That's what he is. So let's check this out. As part of a flurry of executive actions on the first day of his second White House term, President Donald Trump on Monday rescinded an order signed by his predecessor that aimed to develop programs to lower prescription drug prices in the United States, where residents pay far more for medications than people in peer countries. Because that's how the game is rigged, that's how it's set up. The government isn't really allowed to negotiate drug prices with pharmaceutical companies the same way that they do in countries like Canada, European countries, because it's a big scam. Because of Citizens United pay to play here, corporate America typically gets what it wants each and every time. News of Trump's rollback on Executive Order 14087, titled Lowering Prescription Drug Costs for Americans, was buried amid dozens of other rescissions the president ordered shortly following his inauguration. The decision to scrap Executive Order 14087 brings to a halt several pilot programs undertaken by the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Innovation, including an experiment that involved offering generic medications for a $2 copay to Medicare Part D recipients. Quote, this is a good indication of how Trump will approach lower drug prices, Social Security Works, a progressive advocacy group, wrote in response to Trump's rescission of President Joe Biden's executive order. And also some of his executives orders yesterday were there's only two genders, so however that's going to be enforced, I don't know. He wants all the federal workers to come back to work. He's ending DEI programs in the federal government, and he's attempting to take away birthright citizenship via executive order, which you really can't do. But again, he's doing his best to get that done. He said he would too, so nobody should be surprised. Larry Levitt, executive vice president for health policy at KFF, added that the big question, which Trump hasn't addressed yet, is what he'll do with government negotiation of drug prices under the Inflation Reduction Act. Donald Trump doesn't care about any of these things. Y'all got to keep in mind that the only real reason Donald Trump was running for president a second time more than anything else was so that he could avoid prison. And he successfully did so. 91 felony charges, convicted on 34 of those charges. Jack Smith, has already said Trump would have been convicted of these other felonies in these other cases. Merrick Garland drug his feet, didn't want to do anything about it. Donald Trump succeeded in getting away with everything, literally everything. And now he's kind of a lame duck. He doesn't care about being president. So there's no real answer to this question. Well, what's he going to do about negotiating drug prices? Donald Trump doesn't care about that. Just days before Trump took office, the Biden administration announced a fresh slate of 15 medications set to be subject to direct price negotiations between the federal government and pharmaceutical companies, many of which have sued over the negotiation program. So again, the first thing he does is make shit more expensive for people. Quote, Donald Trump is already following through on his dangerous plans to jack up the cost of drugs to appease his billionaire backers after the Biden-Harris administration took on Big Pharma and won. Trump is again proving that he lied to the American people and doesn't care about lowering costs, only what's best for himself and his ultra-rich friends. And again, you got to keep in mind as well, Elon Musk spent $250+ million to get Trump elected. Donald Trump's cabinet, this is the most corrupt, wealthiest cabinet in history. It's even more corrupt and even more wealthy than his last cabinet. So we already know what Donald Trump's all about. We've been knowing what he's all about. Responding more broadly to the president's day one wave of unilateral actions, which included attacks on immigrants and the climate, Working Families Party National Director Maurice Mitchell said Tuesday that, quote, Trump's flood of executive orders is just a cheap spectacle meant to distract us while his administration moves to gut our health care and SNAP benefits. And again, it's just that this is very typical of Republicans. Donald Trump has never been an outsider. He's never been a fighter for the little guy. He's never cared about the working class. And at the end of the day, we already know what's coming.
Hey now, thank you so much for tuning in here at Politics and Paper. If you like what I do and you support my work, go ahead and subscribe. I greatly appreciate it and really helps to support what we do here.